I don't have a trading system name, so remove this category. As entry rules, I decide on the 5-second chart depending on the reaction, depending on the bias, and also depending on the level. I like to take my bias from accumulation distribution schematics based on Wyckoff principles, either if it's a model 1 or a model 2. I do look for them on the lower time frames, as low as 15 seconds. Seeing a model that I like would have me execute on the 5 seconds. Another model that I'm constantly using is inversion fair value gaps. I use them on the 1 minute and on the 30 seconds, but usually this is when I scale in a small position after the confirmation, and I prefer to wait to scale in another small position and another small position depending on the confirmations on the very small time frames, like 5 seconds or 15 seconds. For these inversions I always wait for liquidity sweeps and for a move with intention. I like internal liquidity as much as I like external liquidity, but I prefer to take internal liquidity when there is no much other internal liquidity formed, such as liquidity in form of trend lines and the kind of liquidity that attracts price. So to say I like to be one of the first that enters after a big range has formed, but between the swing high or the swing low. I also use fair value gaps as areas of confluence. Volume profiles and the Fibonacci levels. I prefer the 0.92 and 0.95 since these match well with the internal highs and internal lows I mentioned earlier that I like to trade. I prefer to trade the extreme premium areas of ranges since these offer higher probability trades and better risk reward and also a faster development of price, as I prefer to not stay too much in trades to avoid exposure and also avoid drawdown. I like to trade previous day, previous week, weekly highs, weekly lows, daily highs, daily lows, previous week equilibrium, previous day equilibrium levels. Need to mention that I do have several strategies that I use depending on the context. I also take bias from some personal stats that I have on hourly, 4-hour, daily, weekly candle closures. One example would be the EBP strategy. I like to wait for a sweep of one of the mentioned candles, as that would give me a high percentage of price not going into the opposite direction, as in not going to take the opposite high. So for this I'm using an indicator that provides stats automatically. I place stop losses based on high or lows, or on the upper side or the lower side of the fair value gap that I'm trading. I also use order flow footprint charts for having a confirmation of trapped traders. This happened a lot in the extreme liquidity areas of ranges that I have mentioned earlier, and also after the highs or low have been swept, of course. I target 0.5 risk reward or 1 risk reward. I do not like to spend too much time in trades, as I said. Therefore, I'm not using trailing methods for this. For indicators, I usually trade on naked charts and use fair value gap indicators, K-level suite, a high indicator, a custom indicator, or view app. I also like to use view app. I also use a view app. I'm using trading view for execution and for technical analysis. I usually use from 2 micro contracts to 12 micro contracts, depending on the type of setup and type of price action, and the probability of the setup, and also on how far or close is the stop loss. I usually move stop loss to break even after reaching at least 0.2 R, usually, if I have enough time. In terms of backtesting, I have used a 1 minute chart. Win rate is above 60%, but I refine the execution depending on context. Therefore, it is usually higher than that. Context is very relevant in my case. In terms of expectancy, it also depends on the session and the price action. Sometimes I can end up with only 1 trade per day, other times I can end up with 10 trades per day. I focus a lot on quality, but I do not mind both quality and quantity. I do not use any bots. I use TradingView as a mental challenge and discipline challenge. I do confront with revenge trading sometimes, especially after missing trades. I have to admit the emotional pressure has been building up once I started to trade live funds, because these are funds that I am not used to trade with. Oh, and something to add to the quality of the setup, I always put a lot of importance on the draw on liquidity and like equal highs or low resistance liquidity, or that beautiful liquidity curve. And now going back to mental and discipline challenges, I have no interest in trading news, and that is something where I am having a good discipline. But indeed, patience is a big problem for me. But I do stick with journaling. I have over hundreds of videos and pre and post trades um, recorded, so I'm very disciplined on this matter.